right, folks. I am super
What does it say?
excited today to have world. And this is really excited about this discussion because I'm somebody who is all about positive aging, but my kids grew up going to a Montessori school. So I'm really excited to see what kind of inspiration we can get about blending these two worlds together. And today we've got Anne and Joanne, and folks, they are in the most innovative place that I've ever been. It's called Crossway Communities. We're going to learn all about it today. But thank you all for being here today with us. Uh-oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great, great. Well, let's kick this off and first get to know the two of you. Anne, tell us a little bit about your background and what your role is.
Well, years before I ever came to Crossway Community, I was a parent, just like everybody else, looking for an interesting experience for my children in a nursery school environment. And my husband and I visited many schools, and we went to one Montessori school. We liked what we saw. It was an orderly environment. It was clean. The teachers were engaged. The children seemed happy. So that was my introduction as a parent. And as I got more into it, read more, saw the results with my own children, I went back and did the teacher training, which is a very intensive, um, at least 1 year plus experience. Um, our school is affiliated with AMI, which is Association Montessori International, which is the original teaching institution established by Maria Montessori. And we can talk more about, the philosophy and why it's good for people of all ages later on
Yeah.
as we're talking about this. But that was my introduction. And I did many things over the years. I was a classroom teacher. I was a school administrator. I ran my own parenting center here in Bethesda, Maryland. I published a newspaper for parents. Everything evolved out of that experience. And I also had experience establishing on site childcare for the federal government and several agencies. So I had a consulting firm,
Okay.
all of that before I came here. So a
I
checkered
love it.
career.
Now, before we jump to Joanne and we get to know Joanne, can you give us sort of I know we'll dive deeper into this,
Yes,
but I've been there to Crossway Communities. In my opinion, it's mind blowing. You've got a Montessori school, you've got affordable residences, you've got neighbors helping neighbors. It's amazing.
yes.
For folks that aren't familiar with this community, can you give a little
Sure,
overview of it, and
sure.
then
And
we'll
I
get to
and
know
I
Joanne.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Steve, because it's what keeps me here. It keeps evolving. I came here to assist our CEO, Kathleen Guinan, with the early childhood program. Initially, it was a child care center in this building, and she was not satisfied with the level of programming going on for the children, the way the environment was kept clean. She has very high standards for all of that. And she wanted some different way to think about early childhood. And so I came in as a volunteer to help her. And I tried for a couple of years, not using the Montessori model, to improve what was going on here. And we had some success with it, but I could see that every teacher was trained in a different university or college, had a different philosophy, etc. And I finally said to Kathleen, "You're never going to be happy with this because there's no unified approach to what's
Mhm.
happening with the children or their parents." And so I said, the only model I know that worked for my family and worked in every program that I've done since then is the Montessori model. And with that, we changed the child care center into a Montessori school. That's how it all started. Um,
What about the residences that are
well,
there?
that's
People
interesting.
actually live there.
Yes, we have 40 units of affordable housing on campus in addition to the school space. And the interesting thing is that over the years, we realized that the philosophy of Montessori education could be carried out in all the programming that goes on here. And that includes the way the building is kept, the residences, the community feel that you get, because Montessori is very community oriented. 7 of our faculty in the school live on campus, which means that they have a wonderful commute. But in addition to that, it suits people who are making early childhood salaries, which is very, very expensive in this county to rent apartments. So that also influences the nature of the community, the living community here, because they have the philosophy, they've been trained in this philosophy. And the same thing has happened as we've evolved the program to include programming for elders and for people with dementia. So what we found out, and this is another part of my own history, my master's is in human development. It is not in Montessori education. And what I figured out doing the master's is Montessori is a theory of human development. So it covers, cradle to grave, from a time a person is pregnant till somebody dies. That's human development, the arc of development. And that's why it works in a community-based environment like this. It was designed to include everybody. It's only been applied in most cases to young children, but it really works for everybody. And that's based on the philosophy. Yep.
All right. I love it. We'll go back into some of the cool things that y'all are doing, but I want to
Mhm.
get to know Joanne a little bit better here. Joanne, tell us a little bit about your role there in the organization.
So I'm the executive director of the National Center for Montessori and Aging. My first career was really focused on change and performance management within profit and non-for-profit organizations, not only dealing with groups of people, but divisions and whole companies. However, I made a shift and went back to school and did a doctorate in education and applied sports psychology, in which I co-developed a new theory on coaching called holistic coaching, which is much more a client-centered approach, looking at all parts of a person that need to be looked at when you're helping them go through individual transformation. And the underscore of that was one that focused on caring, love, respect, dignity, and treating each individual as an individual and giving them freedom of choice and identifying what they really need to succeed and helping them get there. I went from there to doing Georgetown's professional certification in health and wellness coaching, which again sort of mirrored what I had done on my own, and also mirrors very much the fundamental principles of Montessori as part of their lifestyle medicine group. So for about the last 2 decades, the majority of the people I've been working with are over the age of 70 and now over the age of 80 and 90. And through that, I was living this onset of early dementia with not only my clients, but with their spouses or other family members, seeing them through Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and, the list goes on, and looking at some of the assisted facilities and realizing that there really was a gap once they got there, regardless of the amount of money that they were spending. It wasn't a demographic, but the quality of care was not the quality of care I would want for myself, my parent, my friend, not even my enemy. It was just, it really needed help. And part of our mission here at the National Center for Montessori and Aging is to do just that. We want to transform the way that we are communicating, managing, coping people who are aging. And it's before dementia, and it's, as the dementia gets diagnosed as something more serious and they start that journey, they have to be treated the way that we want ourselves to be treated. And I'm going through it with my own family for about the past 8 years, where my dad has dementia and Parkinson's. And if I would have had the chance to know what I know now, then their journey would have been quite different.
They've
done a phenomenal job, but we just didn't know. And we have to help people understand what we can do for them.
Yeah. Well, okay. This is a great way to set the table for our conversation. And one of the things, folks, I feel really honored here to just be helping behind the scenes and getting the word out about all the great things that you all are doing. But one of the things that Anne brought up is that Montessori is mostly referred to as an education for children. And the fact that you all have created the National Center for Montessori and Aging, and which operates there out of the same amazing community. There's two things that we'd love to do today is number one, spread the word to everybody about, how Montessori can be applied to all generations. But number two, when you think about it, all of these schools, the thousands of schools that are embracing the Montessori principle on the children have the opportunity to now weave that in to the families, the families' parents and loved ones, and through all aspects of their life. So I hope that this is the first of many outreach programs I can help you with to get the word out. But why don't we first take a dive into what is Montessori Living doing to incorporate the aging community into its nature school? Now, is that what the Montessori school that's there on your campus is called? It's called the Nature School?
Yes, and it's not that Montessori has not been focused on the outdoors right along. Montessori herself was a scientist, and she was very interested in having adjacent to the indoor classroom space always an outdoor classroom space, so children could go in and out freely, take their materials outside, have a garden, have some animals that they took care of, etc. So that's always been part of what she considered to be essential for children to learn and grow in nature. We did a very deliberate focus on the outdoors during the pandemic because we were advised by our medical advisor that the healthiest place for children and to avoid having them come back to school, to avoid them having COVID, spreading COVID, etc., was for them to be in the open air as much as possible. So we deliberately amplified our outdoor environment, and we're very fortunate to have the space to be able to do that. So children do have an indoor-outdoor experience here, which is very deliberate on our part. And once COVID had passed, we realized the children were healthier, they were happier. The children that had difficulty settling in an indoor environment had plenty of free space to do recreational kinds of things, to have physical education, and to do art and science and everything else outdoors. So we are very much a nature school and has infants all the way through to first grade, which is the ages that we serve. So we don't think it's an add-on. It's not recess time where you go out for 40 minutes a day or whatever it is and go to the playground. It actually, for example, today, the children took all their watercolor paint boxes outside and painted chunks of snow,
Yes.
And made an art medium out of the snow that's around everybody. So yes, it's a very essential part of who we are. And we think children are, well, not just children, but human beings are happier when they have direct contact with nature every day and natural light, for sure.
It's interesting that you tied COVID into this. Was the school has the school always been called the Nature School, or was it rebranded after
We
the
rebrand,
COVID?
yes. That's very
Oh,
good.
wow.
Yeah, we rebranded ourselves. Okay. And parents
I love
do,
it.
yeah, parents that come for tours or to find out about our school specifically come with that in mind. They're parents who really are comfortable with the outdoors themselves. They need to be. because I just had a meeting with the staff yesterday, and I said, it's not a choice to keep these children inside. You know, you need to make sure they have the appropriate gear to be out, just like they're in Scandinavia. They need to go out every day, and they have to have fresh air and sunshine every single day. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. Um, this is, I've got, I think, what is a pretty clear vision of what you've created there. Any personal stories that you'd like to share that could help folks better understand what the school,
Does, yes.
how the school operates?
Right. I mean, we are uh, a school that does welcome teacher trainees. So we have Montessori teachers that are in training that come in and actually do their practicum with us. So we do use the philosophy and the training that is the standard Montessori teacher training in our classrooms, and the classrooms are all equipped like Montessori schools around the world look the same because it's theory of human development. So children in Asia or Africa or wherever are learning the same way. We're human beings. So it's the same equipment, the same philosophy. It's very interesting how, um, and I think the pandemic did kind of spark this in us too. Um, we looked around at all of the touch points for the children in our school, and that includes our residents. So, for example, we have several families that are living at Crossway whose children come to the school and do various projects for us. Our school cook, who prepares healthy meals for the children, lives on campus with his family, and his little boy goes to the school. So there's a lot of cross referencing here. And that actually strengthens the community involvement. The parents are engaged in multiple ways, but it also has um, made us think about all of the touch points in every family. So, for example, we have several grandmothers who pick up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock every day because the parents are working. And those grandparents are a resource for us. Most of them are retired, but they have interesting lives they've lived, and they have skills that the children have not learned. Okay, so we have a maker space in our school that we've set up deliberately with all kinds of arts and crafts materials, with a sewing machine, with all kinds of various tools that can be used to fix classroom things or other tools that the children are using, um, to try to get the grandparents to come in beyond just the drop off and pickup. Um, and we've found that that has been so amazing for not only skill development in the children, but it's somebody new that's coming into the classroom, and the children are very proud of bringing their family members in like that. They do cultural enrichment activities. We have one grandmother, great grandmother now, who volunteers in our infant room 2 mornings a week. Um, we have another set of grandparents who come in from Alaska several times a year to visit their grandchildren. And they did a complete garden clean out for us because we do biointensive gardening here. So when they were here in October, they cleaned out a whole garden for us and gave us a lot of tips on what it was like to garden in Alaska, what we could grow here that they grow in Alaska, shared that with the children. Those are very concrete things that our school needs, but also the children were delighted to have their grandparents, especially, come in and volunteer like that and do meaningful work that helps our teachers and our school. It just goes on and on. You know, it's like peeling an onion, as you say. You keep finding, and it's not just the grandparents; it's aunts and uncles or friends of the family. Um,
Community members.
Yes, community members of various kinds. So we're always looking for that because it's enriching for the children, but it's also good for the volunteers coming in. You know, it's a very significant part.
No.
It's good for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a story to share, but before I do that, what I realized is there could be people tuning in that don't really understand what Montessori
Yeah.
is. And
Hmm.
given your your experience in this area, do you have that elevator pitch? Because like several times you
Yeah.
referred to
Good.
the classroom in Japan looks the same as the classroom
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Maybe give us an overview of the
Okay.
general concepts of
Sure.
Montessori.
Well, first of all, it's understanding that in human development, the job of the human being is to become independent, to be able to function on their own. So the youngest children coming in are more dependent. They're still being nursed, they're still learning how to move, all these developmental tasks that they have to do. And our job is to set up what we call a prepared environment to support them in that growth and to help them uh, be more and more independent. So the first tool that you're taught in Montessori, and parents are extremely good at this, is how to observe your own child. So if you have an idea about what would be good for a child to do, tell me why you think that's. I ask the teachers this. Why would you want to give that child this piece of equipment? Why do you think they're ready for this? And they'll tell me, well, he can already grasp something, his spoon or his fork or whatever. So he's ready for this over here. And I'm going to keep him challenged. You're observing and keeping the child challenged all the time. And you have children that are happy because their needs are being satisfied. So it's observation, observing the child, figuring out what they need to the next step in their development, supporting them, and the program follows the child. So that's a very common phrase in Montessori. We're following the child, and we must have a prepared environment. That means that the adult must be prepared, and I cannot stress this enough. Yeah, I always say to the teachers, when you have problems at home, or if you're having a bad day, you must leave it at the door. You have to leave that outside. Or if you need a day off, you let me know because you must be available to those children completely when you're on, as it were. So the prepared adult is part of this prepared environment. And that means we have to have a supportive environment for the staff. We have to make sure that they are healthy, that they get what they need. We have a dress code that we follow because we do not want the children to look around and see people that are all dressed in different kinds of patterns. It's very disturbing for children. They don't know an infant especially, they can't figure out who to orient to. And this happens with the elderly as well. You're looking around trying to figure out, well, who can I go to that's going to help me? So
Well,
prepared environment, prepared adult, observation, and a growth toward independence so that you never get in the way of a child learning something, you know?
But also within an environment that embraces dignity, respect,
Mhm.
integrity, also focuses on, as we mentioned before, the power of nature and getting, whether it be again the on the early guys to the elderly, getting them outside. But there's also that incredible feeling of love and caring. You
Mhm.
know, that even though there is a certain amount of discipline, it's always done,
Mhm.
with the arms wide open. And it's
Respectfully.
wonderful to go downstairs and to watch, the guides and how they work with the children. And that's what we want to see, the
Mhm.
exact same thing with how we're working with the aging. That same, all of those same dynamics, but now just taken to, another part of the timeline.
Rhonda asks, what is the dress code in your school?
Oh, very simple. I am raised in a very old fashioned way. So I never, in any program that I have ever worked in or have been supervising, I do not allow blue jeans. Okay. It's not that I have a problem with blue jeans. I wear them, I enjoy them. However, parents are also part of this equation. They're bringing their children in here, and we want to support our own profession. Early childhood is the last bastion of teaching. People think, well, if you can, give a baby a bottle and burp them and put them down for a nap, that's what you do with babies, and that's just the bare bones minimum. So it's a professional approach. So we use a very, very simple uh, dress code, which is neutral colors, basically black or khaki pants, and plain t-shirts or long sleeve shirts in the winter or whatever. The infant and toddler classrooms, the staff do wear aprons, and that's part of our training because children don't know, they don't have the language to ask for you by name initially. So they orient to something they see on you that's familiar. So the apron not only protects your clothes, but it also is something that children identify with. So it's a security thing as well. So very simple, and everything has to be washable because you'll need to wash your clothes once you've worked with 0 to 3 for sure.
All right. No, no. Well, so one of the things I said I've got a story. Uh, my children were in a Montessori school, and I observed, like you just shared, that there was all these grandparents that were dropping off the kids, and not necessarily included in the
Yes.
dialogue with the parents. There was this just artificial sort of parents are chatting and the grandparents are dropping off and taking off. And I suggested that Montessori had the equivalent of a parent teachers association. I'm not sure if it's called a PTA or not, I forget. But I suggest, hey, I'll take the bull by the horns. What if we created a grandparents club? And so we sent out an email, and we doubled the size of the PTA like almost overnight. The grandparents loved it, and most of them are out of town, but what they wanted was the grandparents club newsletter on what was going on at the
Yes.
school, so
Yes.
they, when they're chatting with the kids, they could mention that they saw the parade or whatever activity was going on there. So this is great. Okay, so uh I guess Montessori's been around for a long time, but it, so I imagine there's some kind of research or science behind it. Would either of you like to share some of those insights?
Well, when we were setting up the makerspace and looking at the power of intergenerational programming and having this special group of volunteers, we did dig deep into looking at what are the field experts saying, and can they help us? Mm-hmm. And whether it be Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Boston University, Emory University, numerous universities, Australia, UK, and France, all came back with the same information, that not only was this good for we'll just call them grandparents or the older volunteer, it was also incredibly good for the children. And same kind of dynamics. There was a study done over the course of 20 years where the children that participated in this type of intergenerational programming actually had better learning skills, longer longevity, less rates of disease. And then there was a shorter one done over the course of 10 years where they looked at, again, this elder volunteer that got involved and the benefits that they had, where they saw the longevity increasing, the rate of Alzheimer's decreasing by 30%, and that overall sense of purpose and love and caring. So their current and constant release of dopamine and oxytocin, these they call them like love hormones, really helped with their overall sense of esteem, confidence, and it sort of played forward. So there's other studies that have looked at the positive impact on cardiovascular issues, even blood pressure, their choice to make to have a more healthy lifestyle. It's because they want to keep up. They want to continue to do this. So it goes on and on and on. One of the major Montessori principles is called biophilia, which is basically the power of nature. And we know that the studies that look at people who have early onset dementia actually, that when they go outside, and this is for everybody, it doesn't matter what age you are, that your brain goes into beta waves, and it is more stimulating for them than doing months of brain games. So at the end of the day, we're like, wow, like there is so much information here and so much science. And we know that Montessori itself is a science-based philosophy based on human development, that we really needed to start promoting this and getting much more involved.
I love it. Now, you brought up a makerspace. Tell us, what is it, and where is it, and how is I'm somewhat familiar with maker spaces,
Yes.
but maybe you guys could elaborate on that.
Sure. It is a classroom in our school. We just assigned a classroom to be the makerspace. And we equipped it with everything we could think of that grandparents or other volunteers would need to be able to repair equipment, do a project, supply things that teachers needed that they didn't have time to make, material making. Um, and the idea was that we would have what I would call the old fashioned, uh, sewing circle when people got together to, or quilting bee, people got together to chat and worked on something together. So we try to do that. It doesn't have to be other grandparents or other relatives or whatever. It can be the children. Older children love to go in there and work, with an older adult. Um, and the same thing across the hall from that, we have a school kitchen. And that's for baking and other kinds of things that the children love to do because they get to eat it afterward. But we do a lot of cooking. There's a lot of what we call practical life skills in Montessori education. And this is another way for them to actually produce something that they can enjoy. So it is an integral part of our school right now. It's not separate. And then we also have gardening equipment in another part of the school, and also tools to use outdoors, because this biointensive gardening that we do is a year-round process. We were just talking about it today. March 1st, the seedlings have to be planted. They're going out April and May and early June. So it all has to be started, and that's a huge project. And then the upkeep and maintenance of the garden. Funny stories come out of this too. We have 2 years ago, we had an enormous number of rabbits all of a sudden that were, the children had seed planted several different kinds of lettuces, and they love harvesting the lettuce. We do use it in the children's lunches. And then we have a little farmer's market, and the children sell their lettuce to help buy more seeds. And the rabbits were coming in every night and cleaning out the garden. So that became a whole science project in itself. And there was a grandparent who was a gardener who had all these ideas about what we needed to do. We ended up having to put up a special fence, but the volunteer helped us with that. And it was interesting how the science drove this project, but and the children learned so much about animal life and the interdependence of different parts of nature and how you solve a problem and how to use the garden tools. It just went on and on and on. And there's no way the teachers could do all of that. It was a huge project. So we definitely need it. Yeah, we need the volunteers.
What a great learning experience. Well, this is all amazing. I mean, and I'm excited for folks that are tuning in that might be in the school, that are either teachers, family members, elders in the community. Just there's so much potential here by centering around this Montessori living approach. But what are you all looking at in terms of 2026 and beyond for all these great programs that you've got here?
Well, we're looking at, definitely a need in the community with family members and caregivers dealing with early onset dementia. It's a big, big, big rise. And we see ourselves as a great area in the community to offer not only programming, but chat sessions. And as I said at the beginning, if we can educate and help people talk about this before things are getting seriously into the journey of dementia, then everybody, again, another Montessori principle, having a well-prepared environment. So we need to share education, we need to share communications tools, and help people build like an ecosystem of support to help them get through it. Because early onset dementia, we're really looking at people, post 55, sometimes even earlier, and changes the whole family dynamic. So that's one area. Of course, we want to continue to build this intergenerational piece and to get more people involved. Steve, I think you offered a great idea about starting the grandparent newsletter and reaching out to the grandparents who aren't here, but maybe are in Alaska or wherever. I mean, the level of connectivity just really has to keep growing. And, the sense of community is one that I think fills a lot of holes within people. Maybe they didn't grow up that way. Maybe, sometimes life just feels fragmented, and your community can be there to make you feel loved, supported, and part of something really strong.
Man, this has been great. I could go down a million different rabbit holes. Forgive the pun. Okay. But um, but I know that our goal here is to make these conversations ongoing, to grow this community of folks that are embrace the Montessori approach to all ages and abilities. But is there anything that either one of you haven't had the opportunity to share today that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
So one thing that we are starting, that it's going to be a big focus for us, is a whole educational, let's call it an educational tour, that's going to take concepts and skills and how we can apply them to the children, to the parents, and to the aging community, whether it be grandparent. But we find that when we're introducing something at one level, chances are we can do it across the board. And again, building on that, the idea of human development. So we're hoping that maybe next month we can have another session with you, Steve, to talk about this in a little bit more depth, and then introduce some of the concepts that we're going to talk about, and then welcome the audience, A, to participate in some of those educational seminars, B, to give us more ideas about what questions you have, what are you struggling with, like how can we be a resource for you, and put us to work, because again, we want to grow this community as strong as we can.
I love it. All right. Well, this has been great. Look forward to the next one. Thanks everybody who's either tuning in live or watching this as a recording. And we'll make sure to put all the important links to Crossway Community, the Nature School, the National Center for Montessori and the Aging. And this has been great. I look forward to our next conversation.
And thank you to you,
Thank
Steve.
you.
You're incredible at your job.
All right. I don't know what my job is, though. This is one part that I really like.